I was obviously aware of it, and I was kind of wary. I was like, oh boy, I bet they're
Mhm.
gonna want to do like a PG-13 version. I bet they're gonna want like I just was suspicious, honestly, because I didn't know what they wanted, and that's why I went in and was like, okay, it should be this, it should be this, it should be this, and it turns out that that's what they were looking for, and so
The Sir, the Mister, the father of toxicity. I,
nice to see you.
nice to see you too, Macon. Wow.
We've talked before, haven't we?
I don't know. We might have potentially.
Okay, you look familiar. Anyways, it's not, if this is the first time, it's nice to meet you for real. But I thought maybe we had met before. But
You know what? I'm gonna go through the vault actually, but if it's our first, it's a great setting. You've
very
had
good.
this movie cooking, and no pun intended, for a while. Like I remember the promo's been great because here in Chicago we had the River Green,
Oh
and
yeah,
we had the
yeah, yeah.
Toxic Avenger on the river here in March and April. It was awesome, by the way.
That was a really clever, like, the river's already green, but I love how they were like, yeah, we can sort of draft in on the Green River for some Toxy promo. I thought that was clever.
It's awesome. But we're talking about a character here that's over 40 years in the making.
Yeah.
How did this come about now? I mean, you think so, someone would pull it up at some point and be like, hey, we can work with this. And in the era of reboots and remakes, like when did it come up, the conversation to sort of bring this back and or introduce it for the first time, the Toxic Avenger, to so many audiences that haven't never heard maybe of it?
Yeah, my understanding is that it had been developed elsewhere, a couple of times before this iteration. But around 2019, the rights situation clarified in a way that Legendary partnered with Troma, and they were gonna do their like remake, whatever, reboot, whatever you want to call it, of it, and they started soliciting for writers to write the script, and they asked me to pitch for that, and so I submitted a pitch that wasn't really a story. It was more kind of like a tonal approach of kind of
Uh-huh.
what I thought was important and how to approach it. And it was kind of things like let's make sure that it doesn't take itself too seriously. Like let's not do a Dark Knight version where it's gritty and serious. Let's
Uh-huh.
do keep it light and sweet and try and keep it practical whenever possible. Have it be a person in a suit instead of a computer generated character and these kinds of things and the producer that I was talking to was a Troma fan and he was the one that had set up the new version of it, so I didn't know that at the time, but it turns out that was exactly the kind of thing that he wanted to hear, and so that turned into a script, and then from there it turned into a directing job.
Uh-huh. Were you aware of the original? Like, what was sort of it coming into this pitch? How aware were you what the original was? It was sort of a franchise in itself too, and a very like cultish sort of a thing. But how aware were you of it? Entering what Joe and Lloyd had kind of created.
It I mean, hugely. I remember
Uh-huh.
the day I watched it when I was in sixth grade. My friend's
Wow.
older brother gave us a videotape and we watched it. And we were just getting into making our own movies, like figuring out how to do squibs and our own makeup and stuff. And so this movie, Monty Python, that kind of thing, George Romero, were hugely influential to us in the making of our, like, not just in the content, the jokes, you rip somebody's arm off and hit him with it, and that's a joke.
Yeah.
That tone of humor, but also just the do-it-yourself vibe of it, where it really seemed like these guys had made a movie on their own terms, with their friends as actors in their own hometown. It was not a big Hollywood thing, and that
Right.
was hugely inspirational for us. And so when they were like, what is that, 30 years later for whatever, and they're like, "Do you want to pitch for this new Toxic Avenger?" I was obviously aware of it, and I was kind of wary. I was like, oh boy, I bet they're
Mhm.
gonna want to do like a PG-13 version. I bet they're gonna want like I just was suspicious, honestly, because I didn't know what they wanted, and that's why I went in and was like, okay, it should be this, it should be this, it should be this, and it turns out that that's what they were looking for, and so it turned out to be a really great match. The producer who was overseeing the project wanted those same things out of the reboot. Like we wanted to try and have it feel kind of, even if the story was going to be new, we wanted it to feel consistent with the original. That was the whole point, because the reason why it endures to this day is because of the trauma of fans. And if you take
Mhm.
something, do something that's going to be totally unrecognizable to the fans, then like why do it at all in the first place, you know? And so that was sort of the attitude that we started with.
Obviously, you took some liberties. There's obviously a little bit changes of appearance. I think the original was like more brownish, but we have here a very green Toxic Avenger too. But I'm 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 guessing you also were really kind of being a fan. You wanted to keep as much of the originality of it. Just use some modern techniques, but keep a lot of it and not sort of bastardize it. Sometimes, you have remakes or reboots that are completely different and you can't even tie into the original. I feel there's a lot of sort of aura of the original.
That's the hope. I mean, it's a fine line, and also you know that you're never that it's impossible to please everybody because
Sure.
everyone has their own idea of what's important to preserve and what's and what can be changed. But it's you kind of have to. I felt like I kind of had to tiptoe around, like let's keep what's important about the original, and then let's make it fresh. And so. Yeah, his skin tone is a great example. Like
Yeah.
I kind of wanted the colors in this movie to be a little more poppy, and so a green and purple skin tone instead of brown. But I did want one of his eyes to be mutated and
Like an
weird,
alien, sort of.
like,
Yeah.
like a weird eye, and I wanted some blisters, and we knew he had to have a mop, and we were also gonna do a tutu, but the way in which he puts the tutu on might be different, and so it's kind of like picking and choosing what to directly take from the original, like literally take, and what to change and what to, and it's this whole sort of, mix and match
Yeah.
game. And hopefully people are for the most part pleased with it. But I think the thing that's important to remember is that this is not meant to be like a replacement of the original. It's meant to be sort of like in addition to, just like there's multiple
Mhm.
versions of Batman or multiple versions of James Bond, and people have their different ideas about like, well, Sean Connery was the best, or some people think Roger Moore was like whatever. Um, it's kind of like that, and some people are going to prefer the original and whatever, but I think there's room for a lot of different interpretations of Toxie, and so I felt like
Sure.
it would be a bummer if we got all these resources together and all this cast together and everything, and then he looked exactly the same and he did the exact same things and nothing was changed at all. Because
Mhm.
then you're kind of like, well, why are we here? Like we can just watch the original. So I felt like there was some responsibility to do something new with it as well.
Do you have plans in place for more? I mean, the original was a sort of a franchise with multiple
Yeah.
sort of followings. Do you have an idea? I mean, of course, it'll depend how it'll do, and obviously moving forward and people checking it out. But do you have already ideas for future, sort of sequels and franchising of it?
I have sort of general, I wouldn't say I've like written anything down or like this is
Mhm.
definitely what it would do. I do have ideas. If people were to ask me, then I would suggest some stuff to them. But yeah, I'm always sort of thinking about what could possibly come next, but I also don't want to get too attached to it because I don't know if they're gonna want to do another one. I don't know if they're gonna want to do another one with me. So
Yeah.
I don't get too attached to it, but I have thoughts if anybody's curious.
Good to know. Uh, we're out of time basically, but here, it was so much fun. I mean, I think you created some killing scenes that I haven't seen before, which is in today's day and age with so much horror and that's been done over history cinema. I think that's a pretty big high mark there. And the camera angles used, some of those shots were really ingenious. So I wanted to praise your different camera work that you used too, and just the creativity used. I thought it was really cool, the stuff you've done visually with this film too.
I appreciate that very much. If we're talking about camera stuff, that's the director of photography, Dana Gonzalez, who is actually, if you're watching the Alien Earth show that's out right now, he directed a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of that. So he's a genius, and I was very lucky to be with Dana on this movie.
Yeah, phenomenal crew. You knew who to bring on here because it made it look really cool all around. You had some really creative people on board. So I know people are going to be excited. I was hyped for a long time to see this, and new audiences are going to get a really of a thrill ride. This is a movie to see in the movie theaters for sure. So Macon, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me about it. And hopefully, if this was our first time, let's do it again.
Right on. Thank you, Jim. It was nice talking to you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
See ya.